Hey guys, just wanted to send you a video to let you know what we're talking about this week. Last week we went through Joseph's story and we talked about what do we do when crappy things happen to us? How do we get up for it? And how can God use those crummy situations, basically. This week we're going to talk about what do we do when we mess up? Maybe it's not necessarily something bad that's happened to us, but when we've made a mistake, because it's an inevitability in our lives. It's not a, if we're going to make mistakes, it's when. And how do we get up from those? And so we're going to be talking about Peter's story, which is such an awesome story because he physically was with Jesus, and so it's a great like picture of, okay, it's a mess up, but then what does it look like on the other side? How do I get up from it? So we'll walk through and we'll talk about how Peter was one of the disciples, of course, and how he was actually a leader among them, and was kind of the standout in the crowd. And so we'll walk up all the way to the night that Jesus is crucified, when Jesus tells them that all of the disciples are going to desert him. And Peter, of course, he says, "No, of course, I would never desert you." And Jesus says, "No, Peter, you're not just going to desert me. You're even going to deny that you know me, and you're going to deny me 3 times." And of course, Peter comes back and says, I would never ever do that." Um, and so, of course, because none of us ever have the intention of messing up. And so he says, "I'd never do that. I would die before I would ever deny you." And of course, we know Jesus is taken, he's tried, um, and basically, when he gets that guilty sentence and he's going to be crucified, Peter's asked 3 times, or he's accused 3 times of being with this guy Jesus, and he adamantly denies him 3 times. And then in Luke, it tells us that, of course, then the rooster crows, and so it's a really like, beautiful image of this moment where, obviously this probably hits Peter like, a ton of bricks. But in Luke, it tells us that actually he makes eye contact with Jesus. And I can't even imagine, the feelings that he must be feeling when we've all kind of been in that situation where we've said that we're not going to do something, or we've had the intention to do the right thing, but then we've messed up and kind of it sinks in that we've done something terribly wrong. Okay, so from that moment, what do we do? How do we get up from that? And so then we'll walk through to the other side when Jesus comes back, and they're hanging out, Jesus and Peter and some of the other disciples, and they're hanging out on the bank of a lake. And Jesus looks at Peter and he says, "Peter, do you love me?" And he goes, "Yes, of course I love you." And Jesus says, he gives him a command, but he asks him 3 times, "Peter, do you love me?" And there are a lot of theories, or there's a lot of talk about why he asked 3 times. Maybe it was because Peter denied him 3 times, and so it's almost as if for every mistake there's a remedy. It doesn't matter. Basically, what's happening there, that interaction, what I want us to get at is that conversation is basically Jesus saying, "Peter, it's okay, we're cool, but I need you." He gives him a command with every relational kind of conversation or moment that they have. He gives him a command with it. "Yeah, you messed up. Okay, but it's okay. But now you got to get up and you got to go." And so basically, we'll be talking about how do I deal with that when I mess up? What do I do? How do I get up again? And um, and it's all in light of a relationship. Peter had a relationship with Jesus. He knew who to rely on, just like Joseph did. And so in this moment, basically, Jesus is giving him instructions as to what to do. "Yeah, you messed up. Now let's get up and let's go. It's okay, but you don't need to sit in it. Let's go." And so that's what we're going to be talking about. And I've had a couple people ask me if we could, in our weekly video, if you could kind of get Vision out another week. And so, just really briefly, the next week we'll be walking through Romans 6, 1 through 14. If you guys want to kind of get a heads up on that. And basically, in a nutshell, what that is when it's Paul speaking, and he says basically in lieu of grace, should we continue to sin just to make grace bigger in our lives? And of course, the answer to that is no. And so that's kind of what we'll be talking about the following week. For this week, just to give you a heads up on how high school and middle school are going to be a little bit different. Middle school, we're just going to walk through and we'll tell the story of Peter in kind of our God section. In the high school time, we will be using a clip from the Passion. If you were here for our Easter weekend, it's the same clip that we showed this past Easter, and it's the scene where Peter denies Jesus 3 times, and it's just a really cool visual. For obvious reasons, we're not going to show it during the high school. It's not over the top graphic, but it's not necessary. We'll just use it with the high schoolers. But if you want to check that out, it's specifically the scene where Peter denies Jesus, in the scene immediately afterwards where he goes up to Mary and just basically confesses what he's done, and you can just see that kind of the grief and everything that Peter is experiencing. And so I'll try to find a YouTube link if there's one, so that you guys can watch that particular scene if you want to. Once again, we won't be showing it in middle school. We'll just be walking straight through. We will have some interactive different things in the middle school group, and I'll send that information out in the outline. So I hope this is helpful. Please let me know, as always, if you have any questions or concerns, and I'd love to answer those. And I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Thank you so much. Bye.